great pleasure to have you here with us, Gwen, and I am looking forward to learning more about all the great work you have been doing, especially working in the nonprofit world for such a long time. So can you tell us about your journey and how you become involved in international public service, focusing on humanitarian relief, international development, and human rights?
No, wonderful. Thank you for having me here. And I'm so thrilled to have this conversation. And I look forward to really exploring the pathways that we're all doing forward in the nonprofit world and how to make change in the world. I was always interested in foreign affairs and international relations. And after I got a master's in public policy, I left to work as a program manager in Malawi for a nonprofit called the International Rescue Committee. And that's where I really got hooked. I knew I wanted to do something that was going to make an impact on people's lives. I was a strong advocate for social justice issues. So I wanted to go over and work within communities across the continent of Africa to figure out how I could help refugees, how I could help internally displaced peoples adapt to the realities of their life, right? How we could help empower those communities and create self-reliance and self-resilience. So that started back in 1993, and I've been on a journey ever since where I've worked at places like the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, Doctors Without Borders, and I'm currently the CEO of the Women Business Collaborative, where we're trying to ensure equal position, pay, and power for all women in business, all types of business, and all across the globe.
But why did you, was there something kind of like trigger you to say that I'm going to, for the rest of my life, doing this instead of doing something else? Because the nonprofit world, it's a little bit different because you're mostly putting your time giving to others than taking from others.
But that's always been my philosophy. I'm the person who always wants to help make the world a better place. And I want to do that with people, right? So I'm an extrovert, so I'm a people person. But I'm very mission driven, right? And so you'll see it on my resume, or you'll see it in every conversation I have, where I want equal opportunity for all. I want to work to help empower others, and I want to work with people. That's what brings me joy. You know, I think we've all seen when you give, when philanthropists give, or you help a friend, or you work with people who need assistance, is you yourself feel good. But for me, it's about creating and making the world a better place. So I'm one of those people, whether it's the news, whether now it's what we see on social media, you know, I want to sort of solve the world's injustices. I want to provide equal opportunity for all, and I love working with people. But importantly, you know, how I think I'm maybe slightly different than some of the other people is I really enjoy working globally and cross-culturally. I love being challenged in learning about not just languages and cultures, but, you know, how we can all understand and work together in spite of or in light of those differences, right? So I get thrilled when I can go in and say, okay, so, you know, what are you doing? How is your business working? What can we do together to make this better, right? And that sort of thing. So I really thrive on that. And I've spent most of my career across the continent of Africa. I've lived in 5 different countries. I spent over 20 years on the continent. So I have a real passion about what's different and what's similar, but really enjoyed that work because it really allowed me a chance to work with communities, with leaders in government, with nonprofits on how are we going to make the world, you know, kind of a better place, or how are we going to provide more access to healthcare, more access to education. And that's really, I am just mission driven, and that's what I want to do every day when I wake up.
I love it. So as the CEO of Women Business Collaborative, what is the mission and vision of the organization? How does it work to promote gender equality and equity in the business world?
Well, our mission statement is equal position, pay, and power for all women in business, right? So whether you're a small entrepreneur, whether you're the CEO of CVS Health, we want to make sure that women have the pathways and opportunities to rise into leadership positions that they choose. We do this a couple of ways. So we are an unprecedented alliance. We are 83 women business organizations and hundreds of business leaders building this movement for equal position, pay, and power for all women in business. And we do this through collaboration, advocacy, action, and accountability. And how do we do this? We bring thought leaders together. We showcase the best practices that companies are doing or best practices entrepreneurs are doing to grow their business. And we share those best practices and we build a movement. So through social media, through the call and the ask for equal position, pay, and power, and through those best practices, toolkits, and playbooks, we can show how the largest business can do it down to how the smallest business can ensure equity across the business landscape. So I always say we're trying to reform the business landscape. Be
And
bold. I think you're the same, right? We want to be bold in what we're doing and how we do this.
we have to, I think we have to as women, because we come from a long way. I think that if we go back 1800 from today, I think we made great progress. But also, I think that we have a long way to go. And our next generation at this point, it's a very big problem. And we ourselves, we need to stand and help them so that they can continue that journey for us and that the fight can continue itself. And I think that they're also bold, the new generation. I see it on them, the way they talk, they stand for themselves, and which is something that previous generation couldn't done before. So I think we have a better chance. But again, if we don't continue that path for them and telling them it's okay to stand for yourself, it's okay to ask for a better pay, it's okay to do that, then maybe they will stand down and not doing it. And when women like you stand up for it, it's the best thing ever.
No, it's important. And that goes to, like we say, role modeling, right? Like you said, if you can, first of all, one thing you say is if you can see it, you can be it, right? So we need women, but we need all women. We need diverse women standing up, whether those women are Asian, Latina, whether they're Black, whether they're Indigenous. We need to have them in those leadership roles so you can see that you can do that. But we also need to help create those pathways and continue to advocate for those equal opportunities. So everybody has the choice, right? Not everybody wants to be a CEO, but I want to ensure that everybody has the choice. If they want to be that they will be able to take the jobs, they will be able to get the professional development training, and they'll be able to build those networks to get up to where I am or where others are so that we can create those pathways is what we're saying, right?
And also look at it this way. You have been doing this for such a long time. You are also being that role model for them, because when I spend time learning about you for the past few weeks, it's amazing the work that you are doing. Yes, I would love to be able to do that, go to another country and support those women as well. So you are opening that path, not just for the one under you, but even the one on top of you as well. Like you can do more than what you are doing to support another woman. And I think that's the most important thing in this world, really, for the next generation of women.
Well, and you brought up something to think about the next generation, right? We often think, like you said, about role modeling or, mentors or sponsors, and you always seem to think that those people have to be older than you or that you have to be a certain age before you can mentor and sponsor. We can do this together, right? You can do this when you're 25. You can work with other women, at your level above you, but also the women behind you together in order to get there. And I think that's what's important. I think a lot of people say, I have to wait until later in my career to mentor. I don't know how to help somebody else. You can help right from the beginning, right from when we start our career, about having conversations about how does the workplace look to you? Are you feeling included? Do you feel like you have the same pathways? How do we do this together? And I think that's where the important thing is being able to look at those role models, but realizing those role models can be at all ages and all stages in your career.
So now, in your experience, what are some of the biggest challenges women face in the business sector, and how can your organization, like Women Business Collaborative, help address these challenges?
Absolutely. So I think, one of the biggest challenges, I think, in this is the unconscious bias, right? If the systems were set up, whether that's a system of how you get a raise or how you get a job, if they were set up biased unintentionally or intentionally, right, it's hard to overcome that bias and people get used to it. So one of it is women don't have some of the same networks that men have, right? And that's one of the things that happens. And so it's hard to kind of get in with those senior leaders. If you go into a field that is predominantly held by men, all the people at the top are men, you have to figure out how to get into that network in order to rise up in that field. The second thing, though, and this is what women face, is that across the world, women have not only their professional workload, but their caregiving workload and the workload that happens at home. So whether or not you have children, you will have a family potentially, right? Or you have parents and you have aging parents.
Yes.
Women take on the caregiving, they take on the household chores. And so it's a balancing act. And if you do have children and you're stepping out of the workforce for a short period of time, or you're working part-time or you're trying to balance, it's not set up to be that way. If it says you have to work, 8 to 6 every day, you can't leave the office, you can't work virtual, you can't bring your child to work. And in many countries, caregiving is not affordable, the United States being one of them, right, for women to be able to balance those duties. So it's the caregiving and the amount of work that women take. And then I think as well, I think the world's changing. I'd love to ask you this, right? I think before women were expected to perform a certain way in the workforce. You're expected to achieve certain targets, dress a certain way, and act a certain way. I feel like it's changing, but make no mistake about it, you still have to achieve certain targets, work a certain number of hours to be a CEO, right? And be able to kind of get the job done. And so I think we're looking at what those norms look like. We need to set them, the role models, me and other women, and look at them and say, how do I set them and how do I change them? But we also need to work within the systems that are already there. And so how do we have those conversations? And I always say to people, reach out to men and women, reach out to people that are different than you, because then you can really build the relationships, the opportunities, the networks, and you can learn how you can advance in your career and what you need to do to be the CFO or the chief marketing officer, whatever position you're aiming for. But it is not always comfortable. And so, the other thing is, one way to do the challenge is you have to ask yourself, where do you want to be? But you have to be willing to ask for that and advocate for that and stand up for that. And it might not always be easy, but you have to know that it's something you want to do. It wasn't always easy for me, in certain countries or in certain situations to walk in a room full of an army and have a conversation and say, here's what you need to do for women that are giving birth in a language that is not my own, right? So you have to kind of get comfortable with being uncomfortable and being able to know and stand in your power, as they say, know that I need to be here, my voice needs to be heard, and I need to work for what I want to achieve.
So now, do you advise women to reach out to men for support as well? Absolutely.
I think you can reach out for men and women, right? I think that in many instances, we don't want to women. I don't think we should isolate ourselves, right? By saying we're only going to speak to women. I'm only going to network with women. I'm only going to ask for help. The second reality is that in many industries still today, the people that are in power are the men. And so some of my best mentors and some of the people I have worked with for equity and equality have been men as well. So when I worked with Doctors Without Borders, Médecins Sans Frontières, and we put into place a sexual and gender-based violence guideline, that was a mixed team. It was men and women. And we were together doing that, right? So it wasn't like I was saying or any of the women were saying, well, this is our issue. You guys stand over there. We'll take care of this. No, we want to bring everybody together. So I will say to women when they say, who should I network with? They're in the business. They'll say, which business resource group and employee resource group should I join? Should I join only the women's network? I say, of course you should join the women's network, but join the other networks. You need to get involved and you need to be with everybody. If you want to create an inclusive workspace, then you have to be inclusive yourself.
Absolutely. And now you travel so many different places and internationally. So how was that experience? How was that influence you to even say, I want to do more and more and more?
Well, I think it influenced me in the sense that other countries, in some cases, have done a lot better in gender equality and equity, right? We hear about the Scandinavian countries, right? Interestingly, though, if you look at a country like Nigeria, women have held more senior leadership positions in government, have had economic ministers that the United States has not had, right? So I think you can learn from other countries. At the same time, you learn what's the same, right? You learn how powerful women are in the marketplace. You learn how many women are forming businesses. Their capital needs or their needs from banks are the same, whether it's in Senegal or whether it's in the United States. And so you're able to bring kind of that learning with you. But the other thing I really learned is from differing people's perspectives of how we get there, right? In America, it's very sort of individual focused, very ambitious, very clear pathway. Everybody should want to be a CEO at this position, make the most money and be the most ambitious person, right? And it's not, the same values are not everywhere. So it's interesting to hear perspectives of how you get there. And so what you learn is how to talk about it and how to listen. More importantly, how to listen to what people are experiencing, right? And where they want to be and not make assumptions, right? That because somebody isn't, I'll just use this as an example. I keep talking about this theme, but if somebody is happy being a school teacher, they're happy being a school teacher. They don't need to give that up and be something else, right? So you want to listen and figure out where they are and figure out what's working for that individual. And that may mean that they still have power and they're a trusted voice in their community to fight for equality and change, right? So when you go to other countries, what I think you realize is, how to listen, how to learn, and how to communicate together to find common ground. But what you find across all the world, I think, is that you find that everybody is concerned about equity and equality. I think every country has their challenges, every culture has their challenges, but in every culture there are people working for that. And you learn how to work for it, you learn what's working and what doesn't work. Social media, as you were talking about earlier, has changed the way we can talk about these issues in a way that when I grew up, we didn't have that broad platform. And that has done things like in Tunisia with the rising of the Arab Spring. So there are different ways we can talk and learn about how we fight for equity and how we fight for equality.
Exactly. And also, when it's come to Women Business Collaborative, so now how can a woman get support from the organization? Or does it just work with big corporations or the small businesses, the medium businesses? How does the direction go? Can I just pick up the phone or go to your website, get support? How does it actually really work?
Absolutely. So first of all, we are a movement, as I mentioned. So we want as many people to join and be a part as possible. So you can go to our website and there's on our contact page, you can click and join. We have what's called an advisory council, which is right now over 300 men and women global that have joined to be a part of Women Business Collaborative. And when you join, what you get is a part of this network. You get to learn, you get to be a part of our programming. And the joy of this world sort of post-COVID is that we do this virtually. So we have quarterly virtual meetings, right? Mm. We share a lot through social media. And we have a lot of affinity groups rising up from women in technology, women in beauty, women entrepreneurs, women in sports. So when you join, you can also go find kind of that group or your tribe that you want to be a part of. And so we are encouraging as many people as possible. wbcollaborative.org is our website. We're also on Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn. So you can reach out to any of us through the website or through Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn, and we'll respond immediately and get you involved. We have a great team. We have a diverse team, and we're just looking for more men and women. So we have about 10% of our movement that are men, which is incredibly important.
Yes.
And our commitment to diversity, equity, inclusion, over 50% of our advisory council is diverse. And over 34% of our staff and board are. So we're working really hard to make sure that we have all voices within Women Business Collaborative.
So now, when it's come to the groups, does that mean that when you have the meetings, women or even a man can have their voice heard, like they can talk, they can what they have to say, the suggestion, the ideas, or anything like that?
Yes, it is. And so we also have networking happy hours and breakout groups that we do within those to make sure people meet people and their voices heard. But we also do blogs and weekly LinkedIn Lives, which are 20-minute segments, and we pull those speakers from this advisory council. So we say, who wants to write or talk about the following? So you can also get your voice heard, outside the Women Business Collaborative, but we do a lot of really creative tools inside the collaborative through the meetings, through happy hours, and then we have about 40 webinars a year we have a big annual Action for Impact Summit that's coming up in September 20th and 21st. It is virtual. It will have over 80 speakers. We give awards to 10 CEOs and 6 trailblazers. But what is also great is when you attend, whether it's that annual summit or one of our webinars, you will see the chat function on fire. People are saying, I'm so-and-so from, Port-au-Prince, Haiti, and I'm here to talk about the following. And immediately someone will respond, nice to meet you, Nagila. I'm here, let's exchange emails. But also they'll ask questions about topics. So there's a voice like you and I are talking. There's a chat voice that's happening. And then we work really hard to reach out to everybody and say, what more can we do? What do you want to see us doing? Who do you want to meet? And how do you want to get engaged?
And how can someone join that summit?
So go to the website and there's a button to click and join an advisory council, which is fantastic. It's wbcollaborative.org. If you also reach out on LinkedIn to the WBC channel or the Gwen Young channel or Edie Frazier, who's the founder of the WBC and the board chair, and we respond to that, and we'll reach out and connect you with our team and they'll reach out to you and say, here's the benefits of joining. We'd love to have you join, and click here and join us. And then we put your bio and headshot up on our website so you can see who's there. And then internally within WBC, we have a member-only online community where people are sharing job opportunities, they're sharing their latest op-eds, they're sharing the work that they're doing, and they're able to reach out to each other through that online portal and share information and build connections.
Is there any fees for anyone to join?
There is a fee to join. So there is a tiered set of fees, right? So it's a fee similar to what you would pay for a LinkedIn. So there is a tiered set of fees to join, but it's not anything more than kind of what a LinkedIn would be. It depends on kind of where you come from, but there is a fee associated with joining.
And anyone, anywhere in the world can join it?
Anyone, anywhere in the world can join.
This is amazing.
You're going to join, I hope, if you have not already.
I'm about to drive you crazy every day.
Fabulous. We love it. You're not going to drive me. No, we do have a goal. We have a few people in Africa. We have a few people in China. We have over 30 people in Europe. So we really are global, trying to be global and trying to get our programming adapted. We've done a lot of global programming around localizing DEI strategies, weaving of movement for global women of color. So we're really committed to being a global movement.
Yes, and I love that. But also that with the events that you have coming up with 80 speakers, for that event, do you have to be a member to join, to be a part of that event? And also, how do you register for that event?
So to attend that event, you register at our website, wbcollaborative.org. It's called the Action for Impact Annual Summit. So you register there, you can attend for free. All of the speakers at the summit are people that are engaged with Women Business Collaborative. So they come from over 61 corporate sponsors, some of whom are global, like the company Sanofi, right? But they also come from our advisory council and our 83 partners. So the speakers are all Women Business Collaborative experts. And when you look at the program on our website at WBC/Action for A4I Summit, you will see amazing C-suite level CEOs, board of director level entrepreneurs. And all of those men and women are a part of Women Business Collaborative, and those are who the speakers are. But to attend, we welcome everybody. We had 4,100 people register for our virtual summit last year. And one of the reasons we leave it virtual is so we can be global and so we can include everybody in the conversation.
So now, do you have a limit of a seat that you can take, or it's unlimited?
Nope, we are open. We want to hit over 5,000 this year.
I think you will.
I hope
no doubt.
I really hope we will.
Yes, I believe you will. So now, could you discuss some of the key programs that Women Business Collaborative has implemented to empower women entrepreneurs and leaders? And what outcomes have you observed?
So Women Business Collaboratives has 9 what we call action initiatives, which are program areas. And each of those have a 2025 and 2030 target. So the first 3 are women on boards, women CEO, and women in the C-suite. The next are women entrepreneurs, women as controllers of capital, and women in technology, so 3 specific areas. The last 3 are diversity, equity, inclusion, gender and pay parity, and women in the pipeline. In the entrepreneurship space this year alone, we have an online an online class called the Fundamentals of Capital that we did with Babson College that is accessible online to teach entrepreneurs about the fundamentals of capital. We are hosting our first ever Women's Capital Summit, which is an in-person event in New York City on September 13th, hosted by Wells Fargo. We will have 150 entrepreneurs and 50 investors at that conference, where we have discussions from beginning stage capital to growing to exiting your business. The application for the entrepreneurs is open till this Friday, July 14th. The investors is ongoing, but it'll be a 200-person in-person summit where we're focused on, the aspects of entrepreneurship. How do you grow? How do you scale your business? How do you exit your business when you're ready? And how do you connect and speak with investors? So that's some of the programming that's going on just this year in the entrepreneurship space.
Wow, you are a very busy lady.
As are you. We are all very busy.
So how do you balance between the two, between being the CEO of such a big, great organization, and also managing your own life and families?
It helps when you love what you do. But I do balance it. I mean, you have to be able to set limits, right? So I'm able to respect my personal time, and it's just as important to me as it is to run this 80 speaker summit as it is to do what I love to do, go for a run. My son and I went paddle boating and went and visited the monuments last night. You have to make time, and I'm committed to my personal time, and I treat it just as important as I do my regular time. But I mean, I'm an active person. I love people. So I just make sure that I take advantage of all the opportunities that I can take advantage of. I know when to say no, both at work and in my personal life. I'm sure you know that at times. Sometimes you just want to slow down, make yourself a nice dinner and be alone. Sometimes you need to say at work, we cannot do that. We're already doing this. We cannot do that. Right. And being able to turn the computer, turn the social media off for a little while and focus on the here and now and the present. What are you doing? Where are you going? It's summer. It's July 12th today. Right. So when you need to turn that off and go do your yoga or go eat a nice meal or go visit your family, you need to take time to do that. And I just make sure I do all of that. And I don't let one thing intrude in the other. It's not easy. But I do that. And I sleep. One thing I learned, I always try to tell people, I did not know it early enough in my career, but I do make sure I get sleep. I do make sure I get sleep at night because that helps me be more productive and more focused during the day.
Absolutely. So now, for women, you are like an advocate for women's right in human rights. And for the past decade, what have you seen that need to be addressed globally so that we can advance together instead of one ahead of the other one?
Wow, there is so much, right? I mean, I think what really needs to be addressed, there's so many things that need to be addressed. And at the root of it all is people's perception of women, whether they perceive women to be a leader, how strong they perceive women to be. But one thing I really think that needs to be addressed globally, and I think COVID has pulled us backward, is health equity, women's access to healthcare. But in addition to women's access to healthcare, companies and organizations need to understand women's health, right? We need to do studies on, heart health that are based on women, just like we're talking about debiasing AI, right? So I really think that the three things that are important to women is access to education and access to healthcare. And if you have those two things, you can create the access to economic opportunity. And, but you can't work and you can't be prosperous if you really don't have access to healthcare and you can't get treatment for whatever health issue that a woman faces, whatever age that you are. And so if I have to pick one thing as opposed to all of them, we all know education is incredibly important. Yes. Without education, and what I think we need to do is be creative about education. Formal education is important, but informal education is also important. We did an index at the Wilson Center that measured how women rise up into government. And one of the statistical findings was that education matters, but it didn't matter as to whether it was sort of the bachelor's degree from the university or the master's degree, or it was a vocational education or different sort of on-the-job education. Right. So I think we need to expand how we think about education, how women get education. And I know with the tech economy and this move to the tech world, skills training is rising as sort of equally important as, I would say, sort of traditional learning. And so I think we really need to think creatively about education as well.
Exactly. And I think that if we start early too, it's one of the best one because at the early age, we get to learn better. We adapt faster. Compare when we get a little bit older, we become, we try to stay with what we know, and not all of us want to expand and learn more and more. Some of us just want to stay the way we are, and which is, I understand that as well. So I think that both of them are great. Even health, without our health, how can we even do anything? Because sometimes people don't understand the things we go through as women, our hormones, how the way they change, and they all play a factor in our life every single day. So if Sturdy can focus on them and understand them and help us understand them better as well. So I think that we will be able to manage them and the way we feel every day, the way we act, because they make a difference in our life. And I don't think people realize them.
No, absolutely. I think you're right. I mean, I think you said two things, right? I think, studies have shown that the education sort of 0 to 5, the very early ages, really getting that education. But you said another really interesting thing about sort of hormones and health and that impacts, right? Men and women, how you feel, what do you feel, and understanding that and allowing, understanding that is a reality and working with that, right, is, I think, incredibly important. That goes to both the health and well-being. And I think that's what we're learning post-COVID is I hear a lot of employers and a lot of people talking about, if you're going to be successful in any career, you need to take care of your health and well-being. You need to balance, as you said. How do you balance your personal? It can't just be only one thing. You need to be able to take care of yourself in order to achieve everything you want to achieve.
Exactly. So now, what advice do you have for young women who like to make a difference in this world and be heard as well?
Well, I think the advice I have is just do it, not to sound like a Nike ad. I think sometimes you either wait for the time to do it, right? Like, I don't have time, I'm starting out in my career, I'm too busy studying, being a student. Or you wait for, I need to know how to say it, or I need to have human rights training. How do I talk about it? I think that you can, talk with your friends. I think you can learn how to do it, but I think you have to be able to ask for it. And I always say, like, if you see something in the workplace that makes you uncomfortable, don't just let it go, right? It doesn't mean that you stand up immediately and say, this is absolutely wrong. You may need to sit down and analyze what you think is wrong about it, talk about it with some people, ask some questions, or maybe your approach, may be slightly different, right? But that approach about even just asking questions and listening is just as helpful as a person who stands up on the building with a sign that says, free this prisoner. So I always say to people, and start where you can. Start in the home. The best way, as you were talking about, the best way to teach gender equity and equality is in the home. Have your son and daughter do the dishes, right? Have people do equal chores, equal work at the house, right? Those kinds of things. And if what you can do is focus on your family and teach them what's right or wrong or what to fight for and to be inclusive, then you're doing your job, So it doesn't have to be standing up at the United Nations having that conversation. We can all do it every day. But I think the thing is, don't think you cannot do it. You can do it. Do it in the way that works for you and for your position and where you are. But don't get complacent. It doesn't have to be the way it is, right? Leadership, who is a leader, who should lead, that's all socialized, culturally developed practices. It means that cultures change, people change, who and what a leader is can change, and so you can be a part of that change.
Great advice. So now I'm going to put you in the spot right here. How can we support, when I say we, I'm not talking about WomLead itself, but the world, men and women. How can we support you in the organization?
Come join us. So if you're a corporation, come be a corporate sponsor with us. Come talk about what you're doing. Come share with us your innovations and how you're achieving gender equity, diversity, and equity inclusion, so we can work with you. We can share it with others. We can make it happen. If you're an individual, come join us, because we also want to hear from you. We want you to join the movement because of your commitment, but we also want to hear, how do you think we can do this? Let's talk about allyship, right? I want to hear from people about what they're doing, how they're doing it, and I want to be able to promote that work. When we're all together, when we're listening to each other and we're talking to each other, that's how we can drive change. So come join us. That's what I want to say.
Thank you so much, Gwen. I appreciate you taking the time to have this conversation with me. But more importantly, I appreciate you opening doors for other women, because we need more women keep on doing that, especially all that great experiences that you have. You have been doing this for a very long time. Who else can we learn from? Women like you that's already done it and still doing it. So I thank you for what you are doing.
Thank you, Nagilian, and thank you for all that you do every day and all the women that you're learning from, bringing together and showcasing, so the rest of us can learn, listen to each other, and work together for make the world a better place for all women.